This week in VR, we talk about the delayed game Stranger Things VR. I jump in for about an hour, so I'll talk to you about my initial impressions of this very interestingly weird game. Let's just put it at that. Elsewhere, Samson has an important announcement to make in regarding to a brand new Walkabout competition, so stay tuned for details of that. And at the second half of the show, I'm joined by Kyle from the NetVR. He talks about his app that is bridging the gap between streamers and viewers, shall we say, in VR and in 3D spaces itself. It's a great talk, and if you're a developer or an aspiring developer, definitely check this one out because he definitely needs people and he needs help. So check out the interview and let me know in the comments if you're interested in helping building the NetVR. All that and more, so let's talk Oculus. Let's Talk Oculus, a VR podcast, is proudly sponsored by the good folks at Patreon. If you want to support the show, join us on patreon.com/Let's Talk Oculus. What's up, Oculus nerds? Welcome back to Let's Talk Oculus, episode 126. I'm your host, as always, Dan from Playtest VR, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always. It is Samson. How is it hanging, Samson? What have you been up to?
I have been up to a lot. I even got eye strain from so much VR on Saturday. It's been a good week. It's been a good week.
Have you had eye strain in VR before, or is this your first time? It's got to happen before. It must have.
This is the first time I was ever like, I need to shut my eyes for 10 minutes.
Wow, that's
at the very least to continue.
Yeah,
on.
I've not had eye strain since back in the day of like first trying VR, but I just get fatigued in terms of I don't know, it's like more of a mental fatigue. I don't know if it's just because so much is happening, and I'm like, okay, after 45, I don't know how you guys do it. Like after 45 minutes, I'm like, okay, I need a break. In certain games.
It was when I needed the break was after the big screen movie.
Yeah, that's fair enough. When you're watching a movie in there and then going into games and such, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, fair enough. Okay, so bit of a two-part show for you guys, bit of a hybrid episode. Obviously, we have Kyle joining us for the second half of the show, which we'll get into basically his business and VR in general and such. But let's start off with the regular show for the regular folk here. And Samson, we have a listener question to kick off the show.
Oh boy.
Question. So this question's actually come from Spotify. So people who are on Spotify, if you don't know already, you can actually post questions in Spotify itself. We do get the odd few, and we got a question from Jacob. I'm not sure if Jacob is in the Discord, but he posted it obviously in Spotify. Sorry, not Jacob, Sam. Jacob responded to Sam. Question from Sam. He says, "Hey guys, I've just recently bought a Quest 2 as my intro to VR. I've been loving Half-Life Alyx and Asgard's Wrath 2. Do you have any recommendations for games that feel as big budget as these two?" And Samson, I must say,
clearly got a PC too, right?
He's clearly got a PC because he's got Half-Life Alyx as well. And some would argue he may have already started with the biggest games, and it's downhill from here. Some will argue,
yeah, right? Yeah. Short answer: absolutely not.
No, but before we get into our responses here, we had another listener, Jacob, who responded to Sam just a few days later. He said, "Hey Sam, in response to your question, you should try Assassin's Creed Nexus. Boneworks is also a fun game, but Bone Lab is slightly better if you want to get into modding." And that I wanted to say that first because I feel like we would have had both games on our list anyway. Assassin's Creed for sure. If you're looking for standalone, especially because Assassin's Creed Nexus on the Quest 3 and the Quest 2, from people that I've seen online, there isn't too much difference. So you're still going to get that big experience. It's more maybe the draw distance and such is a little bit. In terms of visuals, but maybe in terms of like big budget game, Assassin's Creed is a great shout. But
yeah, that one was on my list too. Yeah, absolutely.
But Samson, do you have any ideas here? Maybe you can attack more of the PC market because you must have a PC because I was playing Half-Life Alyx. So yeah. Is there any big budget PC games that you would recommend?
I'll say. I had never played through them, but I did play a good chunk of the first one, the Lone Echo series, Oculus exclusive there. And then personally, I really liked Hubris, but if you go into Hubris thinking it will be Half-Life Alyx, you will certainly be disappointed.
I guess Hubris at its
Yeah,
heart is still an indie title, right? At its
yeah,
heart, even though it doesn't feel like it, but then sometimes it does feel like it. But Hubris is a good like an indie title, which is like pushing towards a big budget kind of feel, you know?
yeah.
Because
And
I
certainly
was
looks good on PC.
yeah, what I was going to mention is that Iron Man VR is supposedly like a big, maybe not big budget, but big IP. But that
Hmm.
plays, and it's a really fun game, but that plays more like an indie title in a way. You know, some
Right.
would say that's more indie feeling than Hubris. So yeah,
They played it safe with the IP there. Yeah.
yeah, they played it safe. I want to say two very
I
similar titles for PC. Sorry, did you want to say
Go ahead.
something? Oh yeah, I was going to say Star Wars
No, I was
Squadrons.
going to go on, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Star
Mm.
Wars Squadrons and
That was a
Elite
really good one.
Dangerous. Yeah, these two games, I haven't really played them because I haven't got a PC, but I just know from obviously you've played Star Wars Squadrons, and I know from one of my friends I used to work with, he had a HTC setup with a gaming PC. He would play nothing but Elite Dangerous or Star Wars Squadrons. So that would be he'll play those games, and maybe a bit going into Flight Sim if you wanted something a bit more
Mm.
serious, but. Elite Dangerous, I still remember back in the days when I never really experimented with VR. That was like the biggest game at the time for
I never
PC
played that
VR,
one. Yeah.
and it still is to this day. Like there's 4K texture packs and all that stuff. Like people are still
Wow.
playing this game to this day. And yeah, Samson, if you've not tried it out, I feel like you should, because it's still been touted as one of the best games on
I did
VR.
enjoy Squadrons, but I'm not very good at space flight or dogfighting, if you will. I had to play on easy.
I'm the same, to be honest. I've played some of these games before. I've played a similar one on PlayStation VR 1, but I forget what the name was on the top of my head. But I'm awful as well. And even in flat
Yeah.
screen, if I'm playing like Star Wars Battlefront and you're in the air and you're doing some dogfighting, forget about it. I'm pretty bad. I mean, bad at GTA 5 flying a plane.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to see flight sim I can do because it's not as 3-dimensional, so to
Mm.
say. Right? Like in space, you can go upside down essentially.
Oh, yeah. You just go upside down, you're
So
flying, you're going sideways.
I find
It's very difficult.
I'm just constantly looking like where I'm trying to go and never actually getting to the level of that I need to. I'm like just doing circles.
I feel like that's pilots in general. How about you? Do you any more suggestions for Sam here?
Yeah, I got a few more. If you're loving Asgard's Wrath 2, then Asgard's Wrath 1
Makes
potentially.
sense.
Uh and then Vertigo and Vertigo 2. Vertigo 1's smaller scale, so only about 4 hours long or so. But because it's smaller scale, I feel like you may as well play it because it's also pretty good and funny. And then Vertigo 2, I just loved, and it feels like a half-like, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Gone.
Go ahead.
I was about to say, I'm wondering if Asgard's Wrath. You know, we got Quest 2, so you wouldn't have a free copy of Asgard's Wrath 1.
Right.
I think everyone who got Quest 3, but yeah, sorry, I cut you off there. Go for it.
No worries. And then the Half-Life 2 VR mod. I've heard very good things about that. No Man's Sky. And then
Good shout with No Man's Sky. That's a big one. That's a big one.
and then Walking Dead.
Yeah, yeah. The Walking Dead's an interesting one too because it is definitely more of a big budget. It's something that I always, for some reason, also go towards the indie route of just because remembering it how it looked and played on Quest 2. But if you're playing the PC version, there's a big upgrade right there.
Now,
But yeah, I had a good time in The Walking Dead.
Now, Dan, these are all generally built for VR games. If you're gonna really want to push it and get in the weeds, you can start modding 2D games like the Resident Evil games, all of UEVR games, and so that really just opens up, depending what your PC is,
Hmm.
a lot of games.
For sure. I mean, if he's anything like me, I wouldn't even bother. I'd be going straight for just the VR titles, but that's just because that's just me. I'm a Mac user in the end of the day. There ain't no modding going on over here. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just made a comment there in terms of Resident Evil. We have Resident Evil 4 VR on the Quest natively. For the Quest 2, that's definitely another big budget title, and if you were a fan of that back in the day, definitely check Resident Evil 4 out. And the other one I wanted to mention too, I guess I'm stuck on the space kind of dogfighting in a way, but this is a little bit different. It's Star Trek Bridge Crew. You know,
It's been a minute.
Yeah, that one's a difficult one because you kind of need people with you to play.
Yeah,
it,
I feel
right?
like that game might shut down its servers.
Yeah. Star Trek Bridge Crew though it's well regarded, but you just need those people with you to actually play and such. But yeah, that's kind of our list. It's a tough one because obviously, you know, Samson, you obviously play on PC VR and such, but you're more into the social VR, and then for me, I'm only on standalone, and there's not many big budget standalone games that are actually good. Like one would say Medal of Honor as well, and you know how much I love Medal of
You're
Honor.
one in this instance, yeah. One would say.
Like Medal of Honor is a fantastic game, but it's funny because it is not like Half-Life, Alex. It's not like Asgard's Wrath 2. Like it plays
It's just
more.
levels, right?
Yeah, it plays more like an indie title. So even though it's technically there's a very big budget, Medal of Honor was, and I would
Well,
recommend
it
it
plays
because
more
like
like an old school like PS2 game or something where you just like, you know.
yeah. But you know when he's thinking big budget and he's played Half-Life, Alex, and going to in most games is you know you're not going to be a bit disappointed. But I think Lone Echo is probably the best shout out of the whole list that we spoke about. Obviously being PC VR. Because that feels big budget, and it also, you know, it also plays like in Asgard's Wrath and Half-Life, Alex. Like it's a full blown story.
It's a good
It's not
story.
really a level thing. Yeah, I loved Lone Echo 1. Lone Echo 2 I never got round to because I got rid of the PC by that point.
I got stuck at some point in Lone Echo where I just didn't know what to do next, and I stopped.
Fair. Just a quick shout out to Red Matter as well, as a game that's kind of similar-ish in terms of Lone Echo, in terms of traversal, but set in the kind of same world in a way, and that's more of a puzzle game. But Red Matter, especially Red Matter, well, actually both of them, to be honest. The way their visuals are and such, they kind of feel big budget as well. So definitely look at that. I would be careful going only big budget named titles that you know, because there's not a lot that actually are as good as their maybe flat screen counterparts or such.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, there's just so many good indie titles, Dan.
Indie's driving VR. Indie is VR essentially. In the end of the day, you know, yeah, indie is. Indie's driving VR, you know, and but yeah. Anyway, so thanks, Sam, for your question. We appreciate it there. And moving on.
And great name.
Do you ever go by Sam, or is it just Samson all the time?
There's people who call me Sam.
Yeah, fair enough.
My mom and dad.
Interesting. So I have the opposite. Like most people call me Dan, but then my mom and dad call me Daniel, like the full version. But you got it the opposite going on.
Yeah, inverse.
Inverse.
I mean, there's other people who call me other nicknames. We don't need to get into all that stuff.
We don't need to get into that. Okay, let's move on. Samson, you got some walkabout stuff to share?
We've got some news, Dan, because we're starting our walkabout talk about LTO about 2. It's the second one.
You need to work on that name. That name is very bad.
We're looking for sponsors. We'll take them.
Yeah.
We're looking for more game giveaways. And so Doritos, Locos, Tacos, LTO Tournament 1. I mean, 2.
Yeah, we wish.
The first one sponsored. Anyway, so first tournament, we did all OG courses, as everybody who played knows, and now everybody listening knows. Mm-hmm. And there were a total of 10 because we did 5 weeks, 2 courses each week. There's still 8 not done, right? 8. There's 18 total. So this tournament, the second one, each week will include still one OG course, and then one DLC course. So as to keep some non-DLC people, a little maybe more involved than they would have otherwise. I'm all about participation, as we know here on LTO.
Fair enough.
Anyway, I'm also going to be trying to keep track of more stats, like best easy course finisher, best overall finisher, best hardcore finisher, hard course. Allow me to finish my words. Maybe total number of hole-in-ones, and ideally many, many more that I don't want to commit to right now on air. And I'll be doing another game giveaway this time for those that play in at least 2 weeks of the tournament. So if you play in 2 out of 5 of the weeks in this tournament, you'll be entered automatically into a game giveaway.
Nice.
The previous games given away were Ghost of Tabor and Vox Machina.
Yeah, and you let them choose, right? That's like their kind of choice.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I'm thinking now, since we can make the rules however we want, I'm going to say you got to pick a game on sale, Dan, because I'm not made of money. But you can keep that going. I'll wait. A week or two. You can wait a couple sales. Sure, why not? I'm in no rush.
Fair enough. You could say a $25 limit like that. That's kind of a fair.
Sure.
Okay, never mind. You make the rules.
Yeah, the rules have already been made. I can't change them now.
So when are we starting this tournament?
It's already begun, Dan. It began day of recording, which was Monday. Day of airing is Thursday. You've only got 4 days to get your scores in at this point. It's crazy stuff this week one.
What course did you choose for week 1?
Well, Dan, can I got some more preamble. Sorry.
Go on. Yeah, sorry. I'm asking the questions that the people are trying to ask.
Yeah. My bad. So golf is ultimately a game against yourself, right? Can you do better than you've done previously? So anybody who participates in consecutive LTO walkabout tournaments and improves will have another game giveaway. I'm not going to disclose the stipulations of that game giveaway so as not to commit right now. And I know this isn't perfect because, we did do the easiest of easy courses last time. So, 5 weeks of that added up to 5 weeks. It won't necessarily be equitable, but, it's the best I can do because I don't have the time or energy to create handicaps individually for everybody and whatnot. So now the courses this week, as everybody has been wondering, including Dan, is Cherry Blossom Easy and Journey to the Center of the Earth Hard.
Ooh.
It's going to get dark real quick.
Journey to the Center of the Earth Hard is hard. That's a tough one. It's a tough one to get a low score. I mean, I say that. You'll see some of the community members here smash it and get minus 18 or so on this.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. And Dan, just remember, if you don't own a course, like if you don't own Journey to Descending Earth, it's okay. Come on down to our Discord. Reach out to anybody in the community. All you have to do is ping at Walkabout and ask somebody to play. They'll probably have the course. And we're a pretty friendly community.
Yeah. Yeah,
mostly.
Join us in the Discord if you haven't already. All the rules and stipulations will be posted in there, as always. But yeah, we had a good turnout last time with the Walkabout competition, and a lot of people had a lot of fun. So let's do it all again. Let's do it all again, but make it DLC based. The DLC courses are like there's such a level up in courses from the free ones. I feel like I'm interested to see how the scores will range after these 5 weeks compared to the last set of courses. I expect them to be a bit higher compared to the easy ones and not the easy ones, the OG ones, but we'll see. We'll see. Wait till you do a Tethys Station one, and you'll get people raging.
We'll see. I look forward to it, and I'm just looking forward to the stats. It's making me a stataholic.
Yeah, very much so. I'm excited to hear the stats and such for that at the end of the 5 weeks and such. But okay, moving on. I just want to give a quick shout out to Vincent and Trevor, who are newest patrons. They just subscribed at. Well, I guess I won't disclose the tiers, just for their own sake. But they support the channel, and we really appreciate it. And
Any tier is good.
yeah, it is good, and that makes our patrons hit the 22 mark of patrons that we have
Whoa.
now. So I don't read everyone's name out right now, but thanks to everybody who is supporting us and has supported us in the past. If you've gone obviously down to a free or $1 tier from where you were before, that's totally fine. We really appreciate any help that you've given us and support that you've given us to keep the lights on and keep this train moving on this. So thank you so much for supporting for everyone in general and such. Okay, and let's move on to the final part of part
What you
one.
been playing?
What we've been playing. Shall I start? Shall I go for it first? I've been playing Stranger Things.
Oh boy!
My gosh, is this a strange game? It's a strange
And things.
Yeah, I don't know.
How long you in?
I've done the first 3 chapters out of 9. So I've done a decent amount, I guess. It doesn't feel like a long game though. That doesn't feel like much. I did that, and I also tried
Like an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah, like an hour ish, hour and a half max. Hold on. Yeah, an hour, like an hour or so, and I got through the cheap 3 chapters or so. And there's only 9 chapters, so I don't know how long this game is. But there's also mixed reality mode, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it's a very, very weird game. So I love the art style. It's like a very cell shaded kind of art style. Feels very similar to like a Jurassic World Aftermath back in that day. Wow, that was a game that came out ages. Shout out to Big Budget Games, that one, and Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge.
You think Jurassic Park's a big budget game?
Well, that's what I mean, right? Like these
more
are what
like
I meant.
a sneak.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like there's some of these big budgets don't don't make it anyway. Back to Stranger Things. It's a very interesting game because essentially you are Vecna, who is the bad person in the end of the last series, and you kind of you're in the upside down world for the most part, at least for what I've played so far, and it's just very claustrophobic. It's a very claustrophobic game. So you're kind of like Spider-Man when you're traversing over vines and such. There's not many elements in this world. It's just very dark. You'll have the enemies, and I forget on the top of my head what the enemies are called in Stranger Things now. But you have the flying ones, the Demogragon. I don't know. I'm butchering it.
What's
I can't
movement?
remember.
Is it just joystick?
Just
forward
joystick.
Walk.
So okay. So yeah. So the joystick, the controls are very. There's a lot of complex controls as well. Okay. So let's kind of start with that. So you're learning how to control. So you press the A and X button, you can basically grapple. So you like grapple your way across like Spider-Man in a way, like across and traverse. Yeah. But then you can also walk by just putting your thumbstick forward and such. Then if you press the grip button, you have this like not a teleport. You have this like beam that shines. So you put that towards a can, for example, and that lets you grab the can. So obviously you're holding the grab to grab the can. Then you press the trigger button, and you press the trigger button, and then you can crush it. Or if you bring your arm backwards, so you just bring it like snatch your arm backwards, then it will bring the item towards you. And then if you push your arm forward fast, then it like will throw that item as well. Okay, if that makes any sense for anyone listening. Then you've got these series of where at the moment you're going through your family members who you've already killed, essentially, and they for people who know the show, they're basically trapped in the upside down world, and essentially you go into their thoughts and you traverse their mind, and then there's flashbacks that happen. You end up back when you relive their deaths, basically, or when you killed them as a child, basically as Vector. And for people who don't know Stranger Things, will have no idea what's going on. But it's very,
Spoilers. Jesus.
very reminiscent. It's not really spoilers, but like it's very reminiscent of the show. And I think it's going to try give you like some more arc, a more story arc of what's already in the show. In terms of how it works, like it's okay. Like the mechanics are fine. There's not too many issues per se. You get some random asset issues, like they'll just randomly pop and fall down and such now and again, but it's not such a big deal.
Are you having fun?
No. No, I just feel very like for some reason claustrophobic in the world and a bit like it's a bit repetitive. Like so essentially when you're trying to fight, so when you're trying to fight the other monsters in the upside down world, you'll have a rock and essentially you press the grab button to chip away at the rock, and then you have to press the trigger button to break the rock into small pieces, and then you push your hand forward to hit the enemies, right? And you basically just keep repeating that. There's a few more extra things that you can pick up. Like there might be some household items like a chair and such that you can pick up.
Combat
and throw.
is limited.
That there's might be something that's on the tree, like these bombs that you can kind of pick up and once again throw. But you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. It just feels kind of exhausting and a bit repetitive in that sense. It might be a game that unravels it. Maybe I'm just way too early in because it's only just been an hour. It's in 3 chapters, but there might be
It's my sense that from what I've like heard, taking in content about it, because I have obviously never played and never watched Stranger Things, though, is that this is more an experience than a game. Sort of guides you through a story.
It's definitely very linear.
And then looking at it through that lens, maybe is more, changes how you
perhaps. I think if it was more of an experience, there'll be less combat involved and it might make the game more enjoyable. I think the combats at the moment early on, these are like early impressions. At the moment, combat is a very repetitive and a bit.
I don't think it gets better.
I don't know. I haven't seen anyone's reviews or anything like that. I've seen like headlines, so I know like people like Gamertag and I think 6 Degrees of Freedom didn't like it, but then I think Mateo did like it and such like that. But I didn't read or watch any of their stuff because I didn't really want to have.
Six Stuff didn't dislike it.
No, I thought they were more on the.
It was. I mean, it was like you got to look at it. If you go in with the proper expectations, like I said, I think that you can come away happy with this one. Is the vibe I get.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
But I don't think that it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Even if you're a Stranger Things fan.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it per se. Like it's a better, well put game than like Bulletstorm VR, for example, which was a bit of a mess. But this game is just. At the moment, I just don't understand it, and I might just be. And let me know in the comments or Discord if you've done this, if you've played this game, and maybe I just need to give it more time per se, and just need to kind of get past these first few chapters and settle into the game. But as of now, it's more of a. I don't understand what's going on. Like I feel like I am in the game and such, but I don't feel like this world, the Upside Down, is as fun as what I thought it would be. There is a fun aspect where you press the trigger button. This was more in the tutorial, and portals come up, and then you portal into the real world, kind of say, not like mixed reality world, just like into the real world in the game. And you kind of can skip and see what people are doing in different sections. You're trying to find someone who speaks Russian in the actual tutorial, because that's part of the actual series, the actual Stranger Things itself. But you don't really do that in the first 3 chapters once you actually get in the game. So I'm not sure later on you'll probably have that aspect of bringing the portal out, and there might be some fun mechanics involved in that. But maybe it's just too early on. But I don't want to speak too much about it until obviously I've probably played it a bit more. Yeah.
But so far, your expectations have been turned upside down, just like where you are.
I mean, I I was very excited for it back in November, and I think I said this on the show a week or two ago, is that I probably weren't going to get it because it's more of a Halloween kind of feel title. But then I got it because I saw there was like mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. I was like, okay, let me just go in there and like try it myself.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can recommend it just yet. There is something that I highly don't recommend in it is the mixed reality chapters.
Oh, yeah?
So there's 2 chapters in mixed reality. The issue is for me, it just didn't work. So
What do
I
you
was
mean?
in, so I was in the mixed reality chapter 1, and essentially, it tells you to put your controllers down. So you put your controllers down. It's all hand tracking and such. And there's a table where there's like a cassette where you have to press play, and there's some Russian language and such that comes up on screen. And then there's a box full of stuff in there. Yeah.
So prior to going in, you had to set up a table. Did you also set up a door and window
No,
just
I
in
didn't.
case?
I
Okay.
had. To be fair, I did have a setup with my room and windows and door already because I did that for
Okay.
Drop Dead.
Yeah.
So it was like it had that set up in, but I don't think it was using anything like that.
Yeah.
At least I couldn't get it to work. There's problems. So I could eventually press the play button on the cassette. But the thing is with mixed reality is, well, at least in this game, is that the objects are in front of your hands. So if you go and
Yep.
press the
It
play, your
includes,
hand is
yeah.
behind it. So it's not good, at all. It's not, your hand is behind the box and such. So it's like your hand is
But
underneath all of this stuff.
so it never looks. You could never put your hand behind the thing or
No,
in
I couldn't
front
put
of
my
it.
hand
Like
on
you could.
top. Yeah, yeah. So like if you needed to press play on the cassette, I could press play, but when I'm looking through the quest, my hand is behind the box. Like I can't. My hand just disappears behind the asset per se. Like
So
there's
you couldn't
my.
get the thing to press play.
I eventually got it to press play, but it wasn't my finger pressing play. I was behind. My hand was behind the box. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like imagine if you're in the VR headset and you have like a cube in front of you, and if you put your hand on top of the cube, the cubes are still in front of your hand, so you can't see your hand because that cube's
Yeah.
blocking your hand. If you know what I mean. So I managed to get it to play, and then the person was talking, and then he said basically there was something on my arm that was
It's like
like
a
a metal
watch or something.
detector
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I put my arm up, and the odd occasion it will flash with the thing that's on my arm, and it was pretty cool. But then it will flash off, and I'm like, "What the hell?" So it just didn't work. Like sometimes, and he was basically in my ear going, "You basically use it like a metal
Yeah.
detector. So you're meant to walk around with your arm." And I got it to work a little bit, but then it just kept not working. And maybe you
How's
need
your
to just
lighting?
I had everything on. I had all my lights on and everything in my room. So like I had full lighting in this room. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to try it in the daytime when I get more light in the room through natural light and such. I'll try it again tomorrow and such in the morning and see how it's like. But yeah, it just didn't really work for me. And he was waiting in my ear. He was like, "Come on, like what are you doing? You just use it like a metal detector." I said, "I'm
Stop
trying."
jerking around.
I'm trying. So yeah, I couldn't get that to work at the moment. So right now, rough start, rough start. We'll see. I'm going to play a bit more into it, but I'm worried about hitting that 2 hours, so I can refund it if needs be. But yeah, if I have more thoughts, I'll share with the next week. But anyways, Samson, what have you been playing?
Well, slow and steady. Got in a little bit of Grid Legends again. Yeah, still fucking fun. We did pop one private lobby last night. We had a pretty good time. I can't really hit the broadside of a barn in that game, but I just love the movement. I don't even mind getting shot down as long as I get to these private maps. Are a lot of them are huge. There's a lot of verticality to them.
Yeah.
And there's super fling. So you just launch yourself, and I love it. I'll never get sick of the feeling of flying
Yeah, fair.
in a bodysuit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable.
Dan, I finally did it. I got into Border Bots. I
Oh,
played about an hour. I didn't
yeah,
get
gone.
much in, not much, but it's a little slow to start. at first, it was a bit of a plot buildup, and I just wanted to get in. I just wanted to, check some passports. I enjoy it. It's a little early to tell, what's going on. I'm not very good at it. But I do love the overwhelming race against time, and you got to check all the things. It's fun. I enjoy that. I knew what it was, and I'm enjoying that aspect of it.
That's cool.
We'll see, how
Is it is it a very relaxing title to play? Like,
no, it's not relaxing at all. It's fucking overwhelming, Dan. Like, it's like intense. You're like, it's a race against time, and you're checking all the things. You gotta like inspect them for things. They might have illicit content like cupcakes on them that you gotta take. One time I confiscated something, and then I was like, all right, I confiscated it, so he's probably good to go. I gave them okay, and they were like, no, he had this on him. I was like, yeah, but I took it. Like, he's good now.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, okay, maybe relaxing was not the word, but like it feels like a fun game to just sit down. It's like a good fun seated game and such, and there's like things happening around you and such, or just
that's the thing. So I started standing, and it was just a lot of like talking at me. So I sat down immediately. I would play this game seated. It would be my personal choice.
Yeah, fair enough. Nice. This sounds like a good. Would you recommend at the moment, or is it too early still?
I can't do that to an hour into it, but it seems like if you're into the Papers, Please, and what this game is, and you like that gameplay, I think you'd enjoy it, because that's the part that I enjoy. Nice. Even though, like I said, I'm not very good at it.
Fair enough.
So I hopped into Hubris because I have not hopped into Hubris since the Quest 3 updates, and I was just curious what it looks like. So I played a new campaign up until you go into the water and climb that first bit. Dude, it looks good. It
does. It looks it compared to the PlayStation VR 2 version quite well. Like, you can, especially at the start of the game when you're looking at the pods and the level of detail and such, like, on there. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's still not as, when you're outside in the water, it's still not as crisp as the PlayStation VR 2, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah.
I'm going to replay that one again sometime. Not really soon, but sometime.
Mm-hmm.
I got into Racket Club with some Brandon VR, and I mopped the floor with him. Like, there was one corner, I think it was outside his play space, and I just kept hitting it there before I realized that he couldn't really get to it.
Yeah, fair enough. So you exploited his room.
100%.
Yeah,
I found his weakness, and I just. But they have a new thing where you can change the rules. Apparently, you both have to agree to it for the rules to take effect. But normally, you can't hit the back wall without it bouncing first.
Yeah,
and you can turn that on or off. And there are a few other rules that I can't remember off the top of my head, and I forgot to write down. But
you're right. They did update that, which is pretty cool. And you could do unranked matches and such like that.
Yeah, we did some practice. Exactly.
Yeah.
I got into some Dungeons of Eternity and Among Us with live open mics. Some of him and his community. That was pretty fun. The new Among Us mode, they shut off all the lights. I love low light Among Us because it turns that shit into a horror game. You can't see anything. And yeah, Mike killed me a bunch. It was terrible. Nobody needs to watch that stream. Yep. Live open mic Tuesday, Thursdays, and some other days too. But I watch Tuesday, Thursdays. Anyway, moving right along. I've gotten into Smash Drums, 11 table tennis, and a boatload of synth riders at work. I take a break.
I love how I've seen your video you posted on Discord, I think, where you were just like parked up and you're just in the parking lot playing 11 table tennis, and I was like, wow, this is the VR passion we love to see.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of synth riders. I set it up in mixed reality, so I've got a bunch of fake rooms around the greater Boston area where I can just play, and I can see if people, come near me or whatever. And yeah, it's a great time. I also got into some multiplayer synth riders earlier in the week, and some Russian kid was like, "You speak Russian? Russian?" I'm like, no. And I just want to know what difficulty was on, so I just started naming difficulties, and then he said easy, but I didn't really want to play easy, so I put it on normal, no fail. And
Smoked him.
that was a compromise. I mean, yeah, of course it's not going to be score-wise competitive, but it's fun to get in there. It's not all about the winning and losing. You know, it's about the journey and the people you spend it with.
It depends who you are. I want to kick someone's ass. Kidding.
Speaking of, I got into Golf Plus, has a new course, Bay Hill. It's in Central Florida. There's crocodiles on this course.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hit the ball and the crocodile eats your balls, and you have to go into the no, it's not like Happy Gilmore. No, okay, no.
I'm not sure. I didn't try. I did hit it into the water a few times, but I didn't go check.
Fair enough.
It's a pretty hard course. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of dog leg. So you got to make some tough choices, and I made a lot of wrong choices. And sometimes even when I made good choices, I made bad swings.
Yeah, that's just true. That's just the way. That's golf. That's golf.
It's bad swings on good choices and good swings on bad choices. Whew, then you're screwed. Yeah. But sometimes on a bad choice, you can have a bad swing. Too bad sometimes can end up being a good shot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's golf. I like how it translates. That's what real life golf is like, and that's what virtual golf is as well.
Exactly.
Sure.
And then I got into big screen with Astro. We watched Spaceballs together. That was a pretty good time. He had never seen it. Put me into Mel Brooks mood. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to watch another Mel Brooks movie in March.
Spaceballs isn't Spaceballs quite a big hit right now because it's very similar to Helldivers 2, which a lot of people have been playing.
Spaceballs is a parody movie.
I've heard this on a podcast recently. Maybe it's not Spaceballs. Maybe it's something space something. I'll come back to that.
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Spaceballs. Yeah, right, incorrect. Yeah, fair enough. Wrong game. Oh, John Candy. We love John Candy.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Absolutely.
And last and certainly not least, got into Breachers. Bunch of Breachers. Both playing and watching a lot of the Breachers VRML on YouTube.
We made a Breachers only pod with you and Brennan speaking Breachers. You guys are in there all the time.
There's no way I want Chris Griffin on the pod.
Fair enough. And that's everything. That's all you've been playing. That's how you got Eye Strain.
I mean, I didn't do all those things on the same day, but I did a lot of them on the same day. And yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Very good. There is like lots of news stories to talk about. There's a bunch. Like we just gonna go a quick preview here where we have the Quest 3 Lite is pretty much inbound. We've had the 256 Quest that's discontinued. We've had a few games. We've got Headspace XR, which is coming out this March. Humanity, which is the PSVR 2 title, is now coming out for Quest 3 and 2 next month in March. Well, this month in March. We've also got a news story about the Quest Pro 2, which will ship first half of 2025, which is very interesting and such. A lot of interesting news stories, but we will get into those and obviously more next week on next week's show. For now, we'll wrap up part 1, and in part 2, obviously we have, I guess, Samson, you'll be departing us, and it will just be me and Kyle, who is the CEO of NetVR, and we'll get into everything good about VR and bad about VR, as well as what the NetVR is, which is, if anyone streams or likes streamers or likes watching like Twitch and YouTube streaming and such, it's a very interesting talk that we have, and we have a bunch of listener questions as well, which we get into part 3. So definitely stay tuned for that. But that's everything from us. Samson, you want to say goodbye? Because you're going for good. I'll be on the other side of this part. Yeah, there's no fortune cookie for
But I'm not.
Samson.
They're over here. But here's the thing. I'm not gone because I'm still here in the live chat of the premiere.
In the premiere, that's true. That's true. And if you're not used to this yet, we premiere this. We prepare this show every single Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're not on the premiere before, definitely join us on there. I've popped in a few times, but Samson's in there from start to finish, watching the show and obviously interacting with all of y'all. So
this will be a long one. I don't know that I make it all the way to the end, but I'll try to make it.
Absolutely.
Because, Dan, the road to success is often a lonely one.
Lovely. I'll see you in part 2, guys.
Hey, we know public lobbies in VR games can be a bit toxic, feel a bit empty at times. That's why we created the Let's Talk Oculus Discord, a friendly community that you can join for multiplayer meetups, general VR chat, the game, and chat about VR, fitness motivation, and there's even a very impressive 3D printing channel. Join over 100 of our community members in the Let's Talk Oculus Discord for free. The link is right in the description.
All right, welcome back to part 2. We are joined by special guest. We got Kyle Duran, the CEO of the Net VR. Kyle, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Kyle, before we get into anything in terms of the Net VR and such, for the people listening, what even is the Net VR? Like, can you explain that to the listeners who have not heard of your service before?
So the Net VR is a startup. We're a startup company that is creating our first application, which is actually an extension for Twitch. So hopefully you've got some Twitch individuals in your guys' community. But basically we kind of increase the experience. So instead of going to, twitch.com, you can now go to our application and then view Twitch through a 3-dimensional space. It's more first person perspective, maybe not quite virtual reality headsets. But we could get into that later, what we did, but it's just this kind of where, hey, the community's built, you can sit down. It's just where you can sit down and hang out with the community.
Yeah, it seems like a next level version of the chat box in a stream in a way, right?
100%. That's exactly. Yeah. We're allowing that chat to get more immersive.
Absolutely. And we will talk about NetVR in a bit more depth in a moment. But before we get into that, let's kind of talk to you about more of your like general VR, because we want to know a bit more about you before we kind of get into obviously NetVR. So I want to start, like I start this with every guest there. Like, what was your introduction to VR? Like, what was the first time you saw and put on a VR headset, and how was it? How was that experience?
So my first stint was at Toys R Us. With the game, nice. the Game Boy Virtual. Oh my goodness, it's Nintendo's Virtual Boy. There we go.
Wow,
Virtual Boy, right?
Nice.
So that would be my first rendition of a head-mounted display. I put the headset, or looked into the headset because it didn't have a strap. I looked into the headset, and my parents were trying to rip me out of the Toys R Us, and I kicked and screamed all the way out. I did like the embarrassing parent thing. Like it's still kind of stuck with them. So that was my first stint with head-mounted displays. And then, I've been in the gaming space, which the gaming space is anything that does a headset. The only thing that's deemed usable is gaming with headsets, kind of. But I've been in tangent with head-mounted displays and gaming since that time.
Fair enough. The Virtual Boy, I remember. I think I was a little bit too young to see that Virtual Boy, but I've seen obviously pictures of it, and it's like it's on a stand, right? And you kind of like put your head into it rather than strap it onto your face. It seems, I mean, you have like an actual controller too, and such. It seems very different to what we have today, but it was the start, of that. Have you ever tried the Virtual Boy? Like, I think there's like a simulator or so that you can. Or not simulator. What do you call them? What do you call them when there's like you're playing retro games and such? Emulator. Sorry, emulators.
Emulators.
Have you tried the Virtual Boy emulator on Quest?
No. So you have to realize that the Virtual Boy, the way they made the consumer, was actually shooting laser beams in your eyes.
Oh.
So if you get on a virtual boy these days, I actually have one, and I wish like I could run downstairs and grab it, but it's I can only watch it for about 5 minutes or play it for about 5 minutes, and then your eyes literally are like strained, sore. They're really bad.
Damn, that
But
might be.
It's
a unique piece of history, right? It's a unique piece.
100% is, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So going into more modern day headsets, like first of all, like how did you even get into the VR industry? Like when was that in a point of time? Because obviously you went into gaming, but when did you make the transition of getting into VR?
So that's kind of an interesting. It was pre-pandemic, so I was working, at the day job. So I got out of gaming after college, like most gamers do. There's just not enough options. Oh my goodness, it's almost 15 years ago now when I graduated college. Gaming, like there wasn't Twitch, there wasn't competitive gaming, there wasn't any of like the massive, construction. There weren't esports that are tailored around. They were giving out awards of like $100 for first place. Second place was $50. Third place was, 25. And then fourth and fifth were worth like 2 and 3 Bitcoin, right?
2 and 3. That's tidy right now, 2 or 3 Bitcoin.
Like it's crazy just to think of, when I was leaving college, like there just wasn't enough market value there to be shared. So I went out to just work the regular day job, and then kind of got lost gaming. And then I had a roommate that moved in, and he was like, Kyle, here's a PC. Just come play games with me. Like just for one night. And I sat down with the computer and boom, got instantly hooked. I said, hey, I got to go do something. I learned that Twitch was there. Shroud was really big around 2016, 2018. He was kind of like this kid that had nothing, was winning tournaments, but all of a sudden he made it really big on Twitch. So I looked at Twitch. I started kind of dabbling in there, and I still stream to 2 or 3 people. But I found out that it's really important because there's actually really healthy communities in there that are good, that are good to be around, that are doing really cool things in the space that just aren't quite seen, maybe mainstream. But I felt the need. Hey, I got to jump in here. So we started with the Net VR, and it was just this concept of expanding on the Twitch experience. And we found a unique problem in there. We found a viable problem in there. And so we tackled it, and we've been trying to tackle it ever since. So that's for the last 4 years. Fair
enough. And then why VR? Like why was that on the docket rather than just trying to do something, non-VR, like in the flat screen world?
So funny story. So we kind of looked at names, coming around to the names. Our chief technology officer at the time really didn't like the name The Net. Two of the founders at the time were like, it's a fine name. It works. It makes sense. The Net, the network. There's networking and computing all around. That's how we're able to communicate, is through routers, which are networking routers. So we went and tried to find thenet.com. Well, that domain has a domain squatter on it, and it's $40,000. So we just happened to add the term VR on the end of it, and it was a $10 domain. So we're like, all right, purchase. And that kind of added the term VR on the end of it. But that virtual reality, I mean, it's always kind of called to me and always been drawn to me. And when you put a headset on, you get that high level of immersion in the virtual reality space. Throughout our kind of history, we've gone back and done as much research in virtual reality as we have. And then we've tried to define it in the way that we've seen actually is like meaningful and tangible, and like what actually helps, if that makes sense. We could get into that a little bit later, maybe.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you game in VR at all? Do you play around with that, or are you just solely just on as a business? Do you just use it for that? Because I've talked to a lot of developers and such in the VR space, and they're like, we don't really touch anything with VR. We just run our app and debug it and all that stuff, and that's it. But are you an active user of VR in general?
So I will put on a head-mounted display every once in a while. I perceive first-person shooters as probably the best virtual reality experience. If you want more immersion, you can put a head-mounted display on. But what we kind of perceived in this, we'll go, maybe we can talk about it later, but it's this concept of differentiating virtual reality from the 3D space, or differentiating head-mounted displays from the three-dimensional space. And I think you see a lot of the big industry tech companies, they're completely trying to or use different terminology in spatial computing and metaverse to try and really break away from this head-mounted display and break into this like three-dimensional space, if that makes sense. So I guess to go back to your initial question, like, are you a gamer? Yeah, I mean, I game probably 2 to 3 hours a night. I stream on Twitch, and I predominantly play first-person shooters.
I think when I had a look at you, you do a lot of Population 1. Is that? Oh no, not Population 1. PUBG is a big one. Yeah. So Population 1 is very similar, I guess. It's just in the VR space and such. So yeah, you stream a lot of PUBG, flat screen. But have you ever streamed a VR? Because I know streaming in VR is very difficult.
So yeah, and I was streaming in VR for a little bit, but I was like, man, this is so difficult. Like you had to get everything like set up right, and then it was very difficult. It was a little bit more burden. I didn't quite have enough space to be able to do. It requires a lot of space. You need a green screen. You need great lighting. My backside is not very good looking.
I forgot you have to think about these things when you're streaming and such. Right? Yeah. Fair enough. So, do you have a VR headset? What's your VR headset of choice right now?
The Oculus 2 is really. I take that back. I really actually like the original Oculus, the
Quest 1 or the PC Rift.
The PC Rift. The Rift. Thank you. Yeah. So I have a Rift. I have a Rift S, and I have an Oculus 2. Everything from. Yeah, we don't want to say Meta Quest 2.
Yeah, that's fair. The Quest 2 in the end of the day. Have you tried any of the newer ones, like the Quest 3, or have you tried any other different PC VR headsets, or they're your two headsets that you've kind of just, that will do, because we get the job done.
Those ones do. I mean, I put them on and seen, okay, this is how much different. So maybe the tracking's marginally better. The screen is marginally better. I mean, it's the same thing going from a computer screen for like a 1440 to, 60 hertz to 120 hertz. Yeah, everybody wants 120 hertz, but is there enough? Am I going to spend enough time in this space to be able to make? No, I can deal with 60 hertz. I'm not trying to play a competitive FPS shooter.
Yeah, that's fair enough. A lot of people want all the bells and whistles, but in the end of the day, they're just playing something simple like Walkabout mini golf or synth riders and doing a fitness app. And it's like, you don't really need all this extra hardware and such that they're throwing at you. So the Quest 2 is enough and such. So that's fair enough. Have you tried the Vision Pro, the Apple Vision Pro? Have you been down to the store?
No, I have not been able to get my hands on it. I've never really been an Apple connoisseur. So
fair enough.
Kind of been one of those things. Like, I understand the main thing behind it is the screen and the display. Their hand tracking is phenomenal, but they just don't have content. And Meta did that originally when Facebook came in and they bought Oculus. They got rid of all the 3D content and tried to like segregate it, and that failed almost initially. And they were smart enough to pivot. Apple can't pivot because they're a closed ecosystem.
No, and I think Apple is not one to pivot very quickly either. I think they just continue and pushing it, and it might pay off and such. And we've seen that with some other Apple products, like what they've done with TV. The lack of content at the start, but now if you go onto Apple TV, it's actually got a lot of good content on there and such. And you can see because they have pretty much an unlimited cash flow and they're happy to just back it. You can see in the future why Meta may have failed a little bit on that, but Apple would succeed. It's just because they're willing to keep going and willing to throw dollars at it, right?
I mean, you're 100% right. Apple gets the best content. Like their content is they can curate the best playlist ever, like the best playlist of video games ever, and they'll figure it out. I just worry. I mean, if you look at VR as it stands today, that it's predominantly gaming driven, and I don't know how much Apple has done in gaming versus like production and maybe movies or cinema content. So we'll see. It's to be debated, and they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like if there's any company that'll figure it out, Apple will figure it out.
Yeah, it's like so on a podcast last week, we actually were talking about the like having hybrid headsets like the Quest 3 and the Apple Vision Pro that can kind of do a bit of everything. Like they can do a little bit of gaming, maybe it doesn't specialize in it as much, but it can do a bit of like productivity. It could do a bit of like big screen and such. But then you've got these other headsets which presumably might be coming out from smaller developers or smaller startups that are creating like a Immersed or creating a little headset that's just for productivity, and it's just small and it's glasses, but it's only for that. But the problem is, because they're startups, they have to charge like $1,200 and such, and it's hard to like. It feels like to me, I don't know about you, and you can obviously pitch in a second. Is just the fact that with VR of how expensive all this technology is, like it just needs to be done by bigger companies to push this medium forward because they can subsidize the cost.
Well, and really, I mean, the cost really comes down to software. It all comes down to software. And again, that's where I believe the virtual reality, like that is the definition of virtual reality. It is that software. Like once you build the hardware, okay, you throw it in the manufacturing plant, you pump out 10 million headsets.
Yeah.
But if you don't have anything to connect, it's like busting out 10 million computers that don't have good operating systems. You need to have the software brought in with the computers.
Yeah, you're right.
Brought in with the headset.
If the software sucks and or just doesn't do that much, then what's the point, right? What's the point spending all this money on hardware? I think a lot of people. I think this is not just VR industry. I think this is just technology in general, and the whole industry itself. Is that a lot of people try and go, oh, we need new hardware, need new hardware, but the main thing to be fixed is like it's the software. Like if you look at something like the Quest 3, the hardware is solid. Like maybe they can put eye tracking in it to make things a bit more rendering better and all that stuff, but maybe they can do little tweaks and maybe they can lower the weight and all that stuff. But the main thing is that they need the better experiences, better software, more optimized software, but better UI to say the least. I mean, you know it on the Quest 2 as well. That's awful. but like that's what they need. And I think that's where Apple would obviously probably be better in succeeding because they're really good at software because it's a closed system in a way.
Yep, 100%. Yep, I can't elaborate on that other than 100% agree. Like, yeah. So Apple does have a leg up there, and because of that closed ecosystem. So, yeah, I mean,
so we'll see. We'll see. It's one of those that we'll just see, right? This industry is like I'm reading the Steve Jobs biography right now, and it's talking about obviously early IBM PCs and obviously the Apple II and the Mac and such, and how these all competing. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like open versus closed. It's like what's more important with the user interface, or is it more like the amount of customizability? Like everyone's kind of figuring this out in the 80s and the early 90s, and it's like this is kind of where we're at in the VR space right now. It's kind of the same thing.
Well, I mean, one thing though I always kind of question is VR has been around. So, I mean, if we call Apple's Vision Pro a VR headset, which I call it a head-mounted display. I keep calling it the head-mounted displays. The industry's been around for 30 years, right? The phone industry was around 30 years, but they didn't like they completely redid the phone. Like they got rid of keys. Yeah. The headset itself looks pretty much like a Quest 3. I mean, there's not really any much newer functionality. Everybody kind of has hand tracking. I mean, okay, cool. They got a new button where you pinch instead of
a different input, but it's the same. But
it's predominantly still, a head-mounted display. And again, to the thing, content is king. I don't know that there's enough productivity content in Apple. Like if you look at a lot of Apple's artist-driven like their systems, because they're able to have the color palettes on Macs, they're able to get in schools. So we were, grew up with Apple's computers. I don't know that I saw that with the headsets that they said it was a consumer or a prosumer level headset. But I mean, if you look at the Pimax headset, that like $10,000 headset the Air Force is using, that's an industry, but they were charging $10,000, not $3,000. So like a lot of people are like, well, comparing Apple to say, hey, an Apple computer was $10,000 and a regular PC was, $2,000 at the time. Okay, well, there was nobody else doing it. There are companies that are already in the enterprise space that are putting together these head-mounted displays. So kind of like when people are like, oh, but they're prosumer and they're concerned. I'm like, well, okay, there's there's other startup companies out there that are doing prosumer levels and they're charging 4 times as much. Why isn't Apple charging 4 times as much? Like they're cutting themselves short if they're trying to get into that.
I think
that
Apple are
market.
kind of, they just, obviously they're much smarter than us. They know their things. You know, these people get paid a lot of money and such, and they know their stuff when it comes to technology. But I think right now with the Apple Vision, just to kind of like end this Apple Vision talk, is more
Okay.
they're like throwing this headset out there with a lot of fun, a lot of great tech and all that, but they don't with lots of stuff that you can do on it, but they don't really know which is going to stick. You know, like I always compare it, and I've said this on the podcast before. It's like it feels like this is more like when they announced the Apple Watch back when smartwatches were kind of a thing, but not really a thing. Like some people had them, some people didn't. But the Apple Watch could do a lot of things. It could be your music player. It could do fitness. It could have maps. You could do your messages. There had a lot of stuff in it, and it still has it to this day. But predominantly, why are you buying a smartwatch? It's because of fitness, and that's the industry that kind of pushed that forward. So I think with Apple, they can see the gaming side. They've never been gaming type of people, and I don't think they want to do that. But apart from that, they're like, okay, there's something else in this headset that is going to take off, but we're just going to give you everything and just see what happens.
That's actually like really insightful. That is really, really, really insightful information because you're 100% right. I mean, if you look at head-mounted displays are a niche. They're a tiny niche. The amount of time spent in head-mounted displays is very, very small compared to being on a cell phone or being on a PC. So that is very insightful info.
Welcome to a VR podcast where you go into a niche of a niche of a niche. But here we are. But I think also the Quest 3, you mentioned the schools. I know Meta have been putting, I don't think Quest 3s, but Quest 2s to a bunch of different schools around the States and such, and really pushing that medium, which is great to see. And we'll see what more they can do about it. I think we have rumors of a Quest 3 Lite coming around the corner soon, which will be very similar to the Quest 3, but obviously much cheaper and affordable. And having that pushed out to schools is going to be absolutely great for future developers and future people in the industry and such. So I just wish I was a kid when I had a VR headset, but obviously you can't choose that. But it is what it is. Okay, Kyle, let's kind of go into net VR here. Let's talk about your own software here. So obviously we know what NetVR is, but when I was researching, I noticed that we have this theater mode. That's your like flagship part of NetVR for right now. What is NetVR theater in particular? Like, how would you describe that?
So the NetVR theater, it's an immersive space to get more engagement with a content creator's audience. So maybe a little bit more background on how I got started. Our first asset that we purchased for the net was a mall. So it was just a shopping mall, and we got multiplayer working. The 3 founders, we were all put on our headsets and we jumped in this mall and we started running around the mall. There was nothing to do in the mall other than run around and explore the digital asset that somebody created. And inside the mall, we started talking, sat down with the other founders. We're like, hey, let's create this mall experience where everybody can go shopping, digital shopping. I mean, there's huge potential, right? Sure. To make a 3D Amazon is like, no one really has the 3D Amazon market. There's kind of people trying. We looked at it as a startup and we're like, hey, that's way too big to pull off as just 3 people. You can't develop it. There's not enough time. Like, inventory systems have to get made before you can even get a product started. Like, the back end is just enormous. So we said, okay, how do we pare this idea down that we want to create this mall? So there was a theater inside this mall that we all kind of collected to. And so we started looking, okay, who else is out there in the space and what are they doing? And then we found big screen. So we mentioned big screen earlier, and people sit down and watch. So we got into the big screen experience. And at the time we were like, okay, this is all right. So then we went and we said, okay, what does it take to get, partnered with these movies? What does it take to get these titles? What does it take? And we felt like to get a title is massively expensive. And then if you only get 6 people watching,
Yeah, you're losing money. Yeah.
You're losing money. So it's not really a viable product. Big Screen was still doing it. I mean, they were giving it their all, but we were like, no, that's not. So we were trying to come up with, hey, what kind of content can we put on this? I just happened to be streaming at the time. So the streaming was before the idea of the Net VR. And all of a sudden, our founder came down the stairs one day and he's like, why don't we just put Twitch on the movie screen? And then everything just started snowballing from there. Then we found that, hey, yes, this is a viable problem. Twitch viewers want more engagement with their content creator. You can now sit down instead of like jumping on a Zoom. You can jump into a game and have a conversation with them. You've got that 3-dimensional sound that happens in big screen, and you just get this extra connectivity to them. And so I've talked with a lot of content creators and a lot of streamers, and they're like, oh my, why hasn't anybody done this specifically yet? Like, this is just a super simple, dumb thing that nobody's done yet. Like, and so we're trying to do it. But yeah, we need help.
Yeah, it's funny with big screen. Obviously, big screen is different to yours big time, because big screen's more for movies, and obviously watching content that way. I guess technically one could put like a YouTube stream or Twitch stream from their PC to big screen, but then the quality's not good. You don't really have that. You don't have the chat or anything like that, right? It's not optimized for it, but you can technically get away with that. But it's interesting to me, and I'm surprised this has not happened, is the fact that there's been a lack of like social VR apps when it comes to like theater or watching content. Because when I've been working on a YouTube video which is going through like media apps on the Quest, and I realized that big screen really is the only app on Quest that allows you to socially interact with people whilst watching content, whether that's in as a theater content or movie content, or like yours in terms of streaming content. It's weird, right? That must have been your reaction too. It was like, it's weird that there's not that many.
It was huge. Yeah, I mean, some of the VR chat can kind of do it too. They've got the really, really nasty looking like URL that never works that you can't put in. But yeah, no, and that was one of the things that we tried. And I see some roadblocks that are out there, or we've seen some roadblocks that are questionable out there. That might scare some people off, but we found ways around them that are very, very clever. And being able to get that content on that screen, in that theater, in that video game, if that makes sense. It's a lot to unpeel back, but it's our solution's very unique.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask that actually. In terms of like how does it work? Like what separates the NetVR theater from just someone like just streaming straight to big screen? Like how does this work?
Yeah, so our focus isn't necessarily focused on them. So big screen's customers are really the viewers or the content creators, or not the content creators, but they're providing. I mean, they kind of have two sides. They need to get the content to share a movie, or you can pull up your own movie so you can share your own content. So it's all 100% in that viewer. What we found is there's an opportunity with people from Twitch, a lot of content creators that become very big or very successful based on a specific video game, actually get their own assets inside of those video games. Right. So we just said, okay, well, why don't we just create one game where all the content creators can have their assets in our video game? Right. It's their perspective. It's their designs. I mean, there's back and forth within the industry on who creates the design, but this is a design catered for that content creator. And so we focused on, okay, why don't we just allow the content creators to do their own designs? And then when you're providing or trading value, like, cool, I pay for a subscription on Twitch, but if I pay for a subscription and I get an emote, awesome, that I can put in the chat. What if I could put it on my avatar? What if I can put the t-shirt that helps represent? And then whenever I go in the 3D space, I'm representing somebody that I'm proud of, or something that, I mean, you know, some kind of brand that shows acknowledgement, or that, hey, this is where I am. This is what I like doing. And it gets to express your character without having to say anything, which is, we do that every single day when we go outside.
Yeah.
In real reality.
No, absolutely. And like, why would someone, this is a question from Samson actually that I wrote down here, but like, why would a Twitch streamer choose to do it via NetVR over just a conventional way of how they stream to Twitch? Like what does the content creator gain, what you'd say for doing it through NetVR?
So the content so this is the really cool part about our application is they don't do anything different. As a content creator, all you have to do is sign up. That's it. There's nothing different that you have to do.
Nice.
The viewer is the one that gets the added experience.
Right.
So they're the ones that are paying for, hey, a digital asset, or they're subscribing through the NetVR. But we're able to connect to Twitch. We're able to connect to YouTube. We're able to connect to Kick. We're able to connect to Huya over in China. We can connect to any platform that's in 2D, right? You can go from 2D to 3D spaces. You can't really get from 3D to 2D spaces very easily.
Yeah. Well, the experience also, I guess, from 3D to 2D, it kind of diminishes what the 3D experience is like. It's like watching trailer for a VR game, you know. It's kind of very difficult. Like when I've seen VR reviews for like the latest game, I'm like, okay, I'm taking your words at face value, but what I'm looking at, I know it's not going to be very similar when I actually experience it. It's going to most likely be better and such. I guess it's like you can't really bring 3D into 2D as much. It doesn't just act. I don't think anyone's found a way. I don't think there is a way potentially to accurately do that. But so on a viewer sense, okay, so just to describe, just so everyone's kind of clear with your app. So in the theater, you've got the streamer on a giant screen. I was going to say big screen, but I don't want to conflict it. on a giant screen, and then also so they can obviously be in the 3D space or the VR space in some cases, and they can have like the streamer there. They have the streamer's chat is right there as well. Can they interact with that chat, or is this like a bit of a separate platform with the chat?
Yeah, no. So our chat, Twitch has really great APIs. So we're able to hook in. We are a qualified extension on Twitch, so we can hook into all their APIs. Nice. You log in through your Twitch account, and you're able to chat like you're chatting on Twitch. You're also able to see your specific chat. So you have options. The content creator it's the content creator's room. So we want to be very clear. It's the content creator's room. So they have a bunch of options that they can set globally, and then you have options on your side. And so again, we cater to the content creators. We're not catered to viewers like some of the other people. We're catered to the content creators. And so they set their community rules. So no outside chat, or no names to get in front of, or you can put names on. No voice chat allowed without having a subscription or something like that. There's a bunch of rules and how you can interact, but they're led by the content creator themselves and the content creators moderators as well. So because that's a big problem in the virtual reality space is moderation. Anybody can get on and just start spewing.
Tell me about it.
Verbiage, right?
That's why we created our Discord for our podcast platform, so people could play together who are genuine rather than just some kids or child adults who like to swear and say terrible things, So absolutely, yeah.
And right, so I mean, really, it is. It's a community space that's led by the content creator, and then there's a lot of things that you can do. So I guess I go back, like there's a lot of things that you can do inside of that space that you could talk. The 3D spatial chat is huge. You could chat on the wall and it goes to the Twitch chat. So you can still interact with the content creator like you're interacting with them if you were on a website. I mean, it's the exact same type of experience, but now you just get to see, hey, okay, there's somebody else sitting over there. The little viewer icons, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 people. Now you actually get to see the other avatars that are actually watching. And you can start to maybe have a one-on-one conversation. And then that builds, hey, you like being in this community. I like being in this community. What else do we like doing? And it doesn't have to be the content creator. And if you look at all content creators, they're like, hey, it's not all about me. It's about my community. But I can't get them to interact very well. This allows them to interact when the content creator's live.
I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not someone who watches streamers. Like I'm not that demographic. If Samson was on the show, he would be all over that because he loves that and he also loves to stream himself. But like I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic because when I have watched streamers, let's say if just it's one of our communities and I just go on and watch someone stream, like they're on the stream. I'm behind my PC as well. I have the chat box, but it feels still very individual. Like I do have the chat, which is kind of nice, but it doesn't feel that I don't know, like it doesn't feel like you're right next to him or anything like that in a chat, where this just kind of bridges the gap and you're like, oh, okay, I can actually have a conversation with a person. And you're also more likely to make potential friends with that person as well. And like maybe you go into a game with that person later on down the road and such. But in a chat box, in a Twitch strat, like how many people go, oh yeah, hey, James X123, let's play a game or whatever. You're not, because you're getting all these chats and it's coming through, especially if you're a popular Twitch streamer. But then in this one, you can go, oh yeah, let me have a quick conversation with James just in the corner over here and be like, hey, you're pretty cool. You know, we both like the same thing kind of thing. Hey, do you want to jump into some PUBG later on today as well? And let's do a round, you know. I love that. It just is that. I mean, that's what's great about VR is I think a lot of people, and this is what I'm kind of disappointed with the Apple Vision Pro in terms of it not promoting that much in terms of the community aspect, where I think this is one of the killer apps in VR is bringing people together no matter where they are in the world. And this kind of bridges that gap that disconnect that we're having between streamers.
Yep, 100% agree. So like my question, are you an introvert or an extroverted type of person?
That's a good question. I think I'm right in the middle. I think I'm probably, as I'm getting older, I'm closer to introvert, but I think extrovert is I think I'm losing the extrovertness.
You're losing the extrovertness. Okay, that's interesting. I'm getting more tight. I'm getting tighter community. I'm done with the fluff. That's funny. Well, no, so I mean that's what it was. I mean, I'm kind of introverted, and for me, I want to be in the space, but I'll just go sit there and just sit by myself. Yeah. Right. So on Twitch, that's really hard to do, to get in the viewer chat. And then the first thing I say, everyone is just like, "Who are you? You're an idiot! Like, get out of here!" I'm just like, I've been watching for the last 10 hours. Like, I just don't know how to bridge that, like that social disconnect. And so like introvert, I'm like, okay, I'll just stay introvert, but I just sit there. Right. And then I usually just sit there and wait until, you know, an extrovert comes and says, hey, what you've been here for so long? Like, what's your story? And then I can like open up and talk about things. But that's what this allows you to do. And it's much more like would happen in reality, where, you know, 3D space is better. It's not just a click on, hey, this is my friend now, like some random thing. Yeah. And that's where that's one of the big benefits and draws to why we've kept pushing this project for so long, because it allows that. The number one game in virtual reality is VR chat. I'm pretty sure most played and repeat use is social apps.
And maybe Beat Saber has something to do with it, because that's just a weird, obscure, unique app that keeps crushing everything. It's kind of like GTA 5 on the flat screen consoles. It's like, for some reason, that came out in like 2014 or 2013, and it's still the most selling game. And I don't know how. Everyone must have a copy of this game by now. I don't know what's going on. So apart from Beat Saber, which might be the weird outlier, but I think you're completely right. People buy VR headsets, and this is once again something that I kind of wish Samson was on here, because he does go on VR chat quite a lot. And we had sadly it's Bradley, if you know Brad, on YouTube.
I love Bradley.
Yeah, we had him on 2 weeks ago, kind of just more talking about his Apple Vision Pro. But the start of the podcast, we talked a lot about his love for VR chat, and because he doesn't really play games anymore, he just goes into VR chat. But a lot of people like him are buying VR headsets just for VR chat. So that's completely correct in terms of like the numbers on VR chat. Like, people are buying these like HTC Vive trackers to go all across their body, which is like $800 just for 3 of them, just to get a more immersive experience in VR chat. It's a world that I don't know as much, but yeah, you're right. That's the biggest. It's social VR. You're totally right, and I think that's what Apple needs to do. Kind of going back to that, is like they need to push that, because that's, to me, that is where VR needs to go. Is the social app is the biggest thing for me as well.
Yeah, that it's socialization, and so we currently know how to socialize on 2D spaces, like through our phones, through Facebook, through Instagram, through TikTok. Debate how social these applications are these days is a debate to be had. But yeah, we know how to do it there. We haven't really quite done it in the 3D space. I think the ones that have done it in the 3D space are usually the first-person perspective games, which are the number one leading genre of video games is first-person shooters, because you are there in a community. I mean, you're shooting everybody and, you know, fragging them out or whatever, but you know, you do have a social you do have a social cue in those games, but it's very limited socially. Where VR chat and big screen, big screen, when you go to a movie theater, you don't socialize. I mean, you sit next to somebody, you don't socialize. But in VR chat, it has more of that, hey, just kind of socialize, just sit down and talk with somebody.
Absolutely.
It provides that space.
Absolutely. But okay, so that's all great for the VR space and the people like us who have these headsets and can do this and such. But what about like non-VR users who kind of still want to go into that 3D space but don't have a headset? Like, are you doing anything to bridge that gap between the non-VR user and the actual VR user?
Yeah. And that's why. So we are a cross-platform. We still are trying to come up with the correct term for the industry of, hey, cross-platform, device agnostic. Those are the two kind of leading terms that we're trying to flow with. It just means that you're connected to that 3D space, either in a first-person perspective or with a highly immersive, head-mounted display. The 3D space, though, is still the same, and it interacts just the same. A lot of people will develop right now specifically for the input devices of a head-mounted display. However, like Unity specifically is done a little bit better than Unreal, where hey, it doesn't really matter what the device is, what the physical device median is. The 3D space still stays the same. And it's important, I think, for anybody that is in the development space to understand that, hey, if you have somebody that's coming specifically to develop a VR headset display, why not just make a desktop version of it? You can do the same trainings. You can do the same kind of walkthroughs. If you want to put a VR headset on, awesome. Yeah. All you need to do is just click one button, and now, head-mounted displays are able to be triggered in the same space. Your forward, your move back, your jump, your crouch, those are all the same input keys. All it is where the display is. And,
you're
that's
playing a first-person game in a way. Like, it's the same kind of thing, right? But you're obviously in the 3D space, the whole person's being rendered and such. And what does it look like for the person in the 3D space? Do they just see another avatar, and that they could be potentially in flat screen or in 3D, or does it look any different for the person who is inside the 3D space? For the people, wearing a head-mounted display, does it look anything different for them?
No. So, that 3D space, so you immerse your entire vision in the 3D space. So you're out looking around, in the first person perspective. Your mechanics are going to be a little bit different because your head and your viewpoint is able to move around. But VR chat even has cross-platform capability, but a lot of people don't see that or focus in on that. No. I guess, for us, we predominantly build for PC builds for first-person perspective, and that way, and then we keep the devices separate. I guess that's our big key differentiator. Because the other thing that this allows us to tackle or get into is the rest of the world, and they're using cell phones, right? They're using cell phones to watch Twitch. So how can you have a first person shooter on Twitch? They're making them. PUBG actually was one of the big ones. They've been super successful in mobile. So successful that India had to ban the application.
I didn't know that, but and then I guess Fortnite's been quite successful as well. But obviously, I think they've not been able to get onto the iPhone store, which has been an issue because of the pricing.
Epic.
That's a whole thing, with the Epic games, right?
Epic Apple battle, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you got obviously mobile is the next thing as well. Like, how do you bridge that gap, and also how do you make that experience on mobile as good as being on a PC and such, right?
It won't be. So 100%, it won't be. But you still will get 3-dimensional sound. So if someone's standing really far away, their sound will be less, or their sound, if they come closer, their sound will be more. But it's going to allow the individual person to choose their level of immersion in the 3D space that they want. So by selecting what device you want to get into, hey, I want to use a head-mounted display. It doesn't matter what device you have. You can still get in and use the 3D space. You can still watch the Twitch stream. You can still see the other avatars as individuals. You can still see the theater itself and the chat wall that's going off in all of those. So the perspective and experience is going to be different for each device, but it allows everybody to use the same space regardless of what immersive level they want to be in. Now, that goes on a caveat. It's because in the VR space, they're like, oh, hey, are you using a head-mounted display? And you go, no. They're like, get out of here. They're like, get out of here. This goes back down to, hey, you're allowed to, the community members are allowed to say, hey, we only accept XYZ devices. I mean, it's a big thing in the genre of video games right now, and not necessarily, head-mounted displays, but PC mouse and keyboard compared to controller, right? Controllers get aim assist, where mouse and keyboard don't get aim assist. But if you go against a standard mouse and keyboard versus a standard controller, the mouse and keyboard is always going to win.
Yeah,
It's always going to. There's certain very few rare instances, but it's been proven. So the different device types allow for different things to happen, and really to socialize with somebody, you don't really need the greatest high fidelity. You don't really need sound is pretty crucial, and the visuals need to be all right. And so that's one of the things for right now. I mean, a lot of the previous stuff that's been in VR has been low fidelity, and it really kind of kills the experience. But the amount of compute power that phones have now, that PCs have, they're able to kind of render pretty good looking stuff. And so the content can be perceived by the individual pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think cross-platform is such a important factor for a lot of the whole industry, in the gaming industry alone. I think cross-platform is really important because things are expensive, as we all know, and such. And not everyone's going to have a VR headset. Not everyone's going to have a good enough PC to run this stuff and such. And you still want a lot of people in there. You don't want people to miss out on this experience just because they don't have the latest and greatest and such. So I think we've seen these with games. We've seen it in flat screen games. I think Halo allows you to play with PC players, and it says if they're on keyboard or mouse, and you can turn that off if you just want to play with people on controllers, obviously, because I get destroyed. I mean, I get destroyed on controllers already, but let alone a keyboard and mouse. I have people sniping me from miles away. I just forget about it. I'm turning PC players off. But the same with I mean, that's really important, obviously, just to make sure that, if you want to control that and you want to keep these people to have all the same immersion to control that. And that's really important for sure. But yeah, overall, I think it's important where you see stuff like Demio. I'm not sure if you've ever played that. That Demio is like a card Dungeons and Dragons kind of game in a more simplistic kind of role, shall I say, a role-playing game on VR. You can now play this in flat screen as well with VR players if you wanted to. So you can get a similar experience. And if you just want the extra added immersion, you put on the head-mounted display like you asked. So there's no problem. I mean, the only problem is obviously the business being able to fund a flat screen version of a 3D space, of course. But apart from that, there shouldn't be any real problem to support this unless the game or experience can't just fundamentally work on a specific platform, right? So that's the only thing. But I'm glad you're doing that, because it's something that then everyone can just experience no matter what they have, And if they experience it on the mobile, which everyone has, and they go, I actually want more immersion, then they will be more inclined to purchase a headset and kind of go it that way as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So on that, has there been any? I mean, obviously, because you're looking to cater to a different type of devices or anything, is there been any hardware limitations or frustrations on any platform, maybe VR specifically, that's annoying or something that you need to work harder at, or has the hardware been okay?
No, so so we started in 2019 doing the first initial development, and it was hard. So we had Meta come in, and they going for an HTC Vive versus the Oculus versus the HP headsets that were out at the time. These were kind of the staple headsets that you had to get, and fixing all the controllers between all three. You had to have different keybinds. Unity was like, hey, we're going to solve this problem for you. And they literally have one keybind, and then they handle it. You just download the application API key. So initially we were having to do, and we had to figure out all the keybinds. And that took months. That took our developer months. We never got it right. But Unity came out, relatively after, Oculus came out. The VR space, as far as development, is moving along pretty readily in being cross-platform with the devices. I think they've noticed that the market's so niche, like we can't fight each other. Like we have to let the consumer pick the headset, and then if I have headset content, I need to make sure that my headset content works with every device, or me as a developer, I'm not going to make much money. I just think VR developers have always been notoriously underfunded because head-mounted display devices are, again, the usage is just not there. Like the amount of hours, we calculated it out a couple years ago. The amount of headset usage is less than a second in the entire country, across everybody, right?
Across everything,
across every human being, across everything, where, cell phones are at like 3 to 4 hours, television is at like 3 to 4 hours, and PCs are, 3 to 4 hours. And then there's a mix, and we're almost in front of a screen almost 8 hours a day these days. So head-mounted displays are getting like 0.01. So if you're going to develop an application that only caters, I mean, you can just look at the amount of time. It's astronomically different. It's a thing.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. Moving on to like other features. Obviously, you're mostly Twitch. Are you looking at YouTube streaming as well, since that's becoming like a pretty big thing as well, right, with YouTube gaming? I guess Facebook's kind of diminished a little bit more, but like YouTube seems to be the one that's competing with Twitch. Have you been looking at that as well?
Yeah, so we focus predominantly on live content. So any content that is being live streamed. So Twitch is live, YouTube live, Facebook does have live, Instagram live, TikTok live. We can plug into almost any of these applications, but we focus on live content because we want you, if you're there and you're partaking, we want to make sure that we attach you to somebody that is also live in the virtual reality space. So this almost forces you to attach. They're already there. So we cater to them. They're already going to be there. So when you come in, you're going to consciously connect to somebody else that's live. You're not going to be alone. You're not going to be just watching reruns of content. You might be watching reruns of content if somebody's live streaming, old content. But hey, that's the community members, forte, whatever they want.
They know what they get into if that's the case, for sure. Yeah, fair enough. Because I was thinking, we don't, as you know, we're not doing this live, and we don't really do live podcasts, but we do for specific occasions. So like last year we did our 100th episode and we did it on YouTube live. And when the MetaQuest gaming showcases are every year, and also the Connect, which is every year, they're like last year we had 3, but normally we do it twice a year for that moment. So it would be cool to have like in because we normally do it on YouTube, actually, just because I don't really know Twitch. That's just why I chose YouTube, because we have also we have our subscribers and such. We have like our community is used to YouTube, so it makes sense just to do YouTube. So that would be a cool way to interact with the community. With obviously they already know VR, they already have that, and we could open up a room through NetVR for those specific events, and we could live stream. That'd be crazy. That'd be really cool.
Well, so here's the other thing though. So we were able to, our first initial product is again immediately focused on live content. The other thing is like the podcasting market, how they want to get their community involved. But podcasting is very much, so there's a time that you guys will release an episode. There's a lot of like, hey, we're releasing at 7:00. You can say that, hey, here's this scheduled time, and the producers will be in the audience with you. So you can ask questions after, right? So our secondary market goes over to the podcasters. That's an easy transition to make over as we go and try and expand. And we'll definitely try and get there, because in talking with podcasters, they said, hey, I need to build my community better. I need to have more engagement in my community. This application, you've already kind of said, it allows that. It allows that.
No, absolutely. Like, because of what we've just started doing is that when we put this podcast episode out early for the Patreons, a day early, but we also do the scheduled streaming on YouTube on Thursday at normally 8:00 Eastern is normally the time. So I sometimes might be in there. Samson's always in there as more the community guy of the podcast, and obviously we have a few people, and there's been a decent turnout for that as well. And once I remember back in the day, we had one of our Patreons, shout out to Dave, who actually, it wasn't like a scheduled episode. He just says like, hey, I'm going to watch the pod in big screen. Does anyone want to join me? And then me and Samson jumped in, and there was like 5 or 6 of us in there just watching the pod. And then we were talking about it afterwards and having that interaction. So to have like an actual dedicated platform for that through NetVR would be fantastic. So as a podcast, I would say, yes, green light. I would happily use that if you wanted actual feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I just wanted a couple of things just to round out our initial chat here. One, the influencer program, like do you know how much it costs, or is it just dependent on the actual influencer itself?
So the influencers, so we're trying to make sure the influencers are free to use. We partner with them. So we partner with content creators, and then we sell digital assets together. So they come up with a design, we create the product, and then we handle the money flow. And we're trying to get, we'll see how the money and numbers turn up, but it's a partnership. We're trying to get above where Twitch was at originally. It was somewhere around like 70-30, where, hey, the partnership's going to them. This is all their content. This is their community. We just want to allow access and help be a part of it, or help add value, which we see is there, and we see, that the VR space can help add value.
Perfect. So obviously you said all that the content creator really needs to do is pretty much sign up in a way, but how does the viewer get into a room? Like, is that something on the content creator side as well to kind of set this room up through their Twitch? I see they don't really need to do too much differently, but how does one viewer basically get into a room like this? How do they know about it?
Yeah. They have an administrator, so you have to download the application. So we're not going through web based. We're gonna try and do a web based, because a lot of people just want to. They haven't seen it, they just want to try it. So how can I try the app? And so we're gonna try and get some WebGL builds out there where you can jump in and you can sit. You can't really fully interact. You can see all the interactions going on. We're gonna try it. We've been working on that. It's a lot more hassle in that development. We're gonna try and make it as easy as possible for you to get in and see what it is that's going on. So even as a content creator, like there's live DJs that present live DJs. Yeah. They can open up a web page and they'd be able to see their audience, and they'd be able to have an administrator panel that says, hey, kick this person, or silence this person, or highlight this person, or make this person dance, that kind of thing. So there's an admin panel. But as far as that, they don't have to use that panel, and their stream's going to go live, their chat wall is going to go live, and then their room is going to go live.
Perfect.
And that's where it's a very simple application. There's not much to it. It doesn't seem like much, but we then just we monitor whenever they go live, and when they go live, we open the theater for them.
For sure. No, it's important though, because we know with VR streaming, right, how complicated it is, and then streaming in general, like if there's technical difficulties, if there's another thing to worry about and such, like it's just too much, right? There's already streamers want to have it all set up, and maybe the first 2 streams go a bit weird because they're getting used to it. But they really want to go, okay, when I hit live, I'm good to go, and they shouldn't need to do too much, okay, with that. So it's important that your app is simplistic enough, to have it not as a headache to add into your Twitch streams, right? You want it to be more seamless.
Yep, you're 100% right. I mean, streaming on Twitch, you got way more to worry about than being able to monitor this space. And so you don't have to monitor it, but it is there, and it's kind of a no brainer to use as a Twitch content creator, because it's like, why would I reject that? Why would I reject income of somebody buying assets in my theater, right?
So. For sure. And the final thing from me here is just with. Obviously, you said with the head-mounted display, with that and such. Like, is this more PC VR centric in terms of app for someone to use this right now, or is there a standalone version of this that someone could, if they just have a Quest 3, for example, could they watch a stream in there as of now?
Yes. So here's maybe the downside, we built a prototype. We built a prototype in the last 3 years, and we took the prototype out and tried it across the market. It got resounding awesome praise. We weren't able to appease investors or venture capital or any gaming studios to take our idea on. Unfortunately, we even had Meta come and try and poach and take our idea, and they implemented in some of their ideas in the newest. It didn't quite take off because the content creator that they're trying to cater to are not the same content creators, which was if they're listening to this, then maybe they should go back and relook. But yeah, it's been tough. Our biggest challenge has really been building the minimum viable product, which is an application that is allowed to trade those digital assets, that is allowed to transfer money back and forth. Right. And that's where we got stuck. That is where, so we are stuck in development. Our new minimum viable product is about 45% complete. We've been working on it for about 6 months, and we have 20 developers that are just dedicating their time to try and build the product.
Got it.
We need help. We need help. If there's any developers out there that are in your community, or any ventures that are out there that want to get in the gaming space, would love to have a conversation with them.
I think we definitely have a few in there, and we'll definitely leave some details on the links, obviously, to NetVR below and such. And if we have anyone interested, for sure. Okay, so that will do for part 2. We do have some listener questions. So in part 3, what we'll do is we'll get into some of those listener questions just to round up the show, and we'll give Kyle a little break here. So we'll see everybody in part 3. Let's Talk Oculus is available on all good podcast platforms and some rubbish ones as well. If you want to see the video version, it's available on YouTube and Spotify. And also, if you love us so much, then consider throwing us $1 at patreon.com/letstalkoculus. Back to the show. All right, welcome back to part 3. We're going to go into some listener questions. We had a bunch of questions from 2 people from our community. And obviously, for everyone who doesn't know, and you should know already, unless you're new here, join us on the Discord if you want to ever ask questions to guests like Kyle right here, or obviously to us in regular shows. But let's get straight in. We're gonna obviously read out Discord usernames here. So we got Jeff Orrays, which I got a feeling may be connected to you, Kyle, in some sort of way, but I can neither confirm or deny that. He had a few questions here. Sure. Yeah, I don't know for sure, so we're not going to confirm here. First question is, we talked about some of this already, but he says, what have been some of your roadblocks in getting the project off the ground and closer to market? Like, is there anything else that you wanted to share in that?
No, the main ones are just developers, and developers are getting hit right now on all sides. It's really, really gross, kind of what's happening in the development community, the gaming space. Anybody that's developing these 3D applications for basically anybody that's using software, right? We were talking earlier in software. What we've been able to do though is we've been able to pull developers in. We've been getting developers, job experience. So they've been coding in Unity, and they've been using a lot of the APIs and backend. So we've actually been able to get them enough experience to where they're now stepping ahead of other people that are out of the job market and just seeking jobs. So they're working on a tangible project. It's a cool project to work on. We're not terrible people to work with, I think. We'll ask the employees. We'll ask the employees. Yeah. Speak up with the employees, but we're able to get people experience, which I think is highly invaluable, or maybe the experience level is not. People keep trying to put dollars on experience level, and that's just not a thing. But for us, we're getting people jobs, and we're getting people put ahead of, hey, I had 10 years of experience. Well, are you working right now? No. Yeah. We're going to take this intern developer that'll take a third of the cost. But so it's a win-win. Again, for us,
it's a win-win on both parties, right? Because in a way, like, people who are just starting out in development but are decent enough to, and they maybe can't get their foot in the door of like bigger places or anything like that, they can obviously join you, help you guys. And obviously, if you get to the point where you can ship this product, you finish your development, you hit the 100% mark, that is massive for someone, having something that's actually been from start to finish and actually shipped properly and such. That's obviously huge for that industry and for that person. So there's a lot of incentive that way. So yeah, like we said, just rounded off part 2. If you're interested in anything, the NetVR, definitely have a look.
We got plenty of jobs to do, and not enough people to do them.
Absolutely. Other question from Jeff. He says, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way in your journey of starting the Net VR? Maybe you should give us one or two things.
Yeah, I think it starts for me just being in the correct ecosystem of what it is that like the startup being a startup, especially in gaming as well. A lot of like kind of indie studios. There's indie studios that are all across the country, but there's a predominant amount in like San Francisco or in LA for gaming. So if you are in a startup and you have the ability to move to a proper ecosystem before you really get going. So we trudged through where my hometown is from, Oregon. So I'm Pacific Northwestern.
Nice. Yeah.
Born my entire life was born in and stayed in Oregon, and it didn't want video gaming. It said no to video gaming. And we talked to venture capitals. We talked to one indie studio, and they're like, "Man, we're starving as it is. There's no way we can take on any of your time." And so, just being in the proper ecosystem for whatever product it is that you're doing. So if I had started a food and beverage company in Portland, Oregon, I would have been great. It would have been great for me. I would have had support. I would have had the proper community around me. Being in gaming, if you really want to do a startup and you really want to give it your all, try and be in that proper ecosystem, or at least figure out how to get inside of that community and be attached to that community.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's Jeff's third question here kind of ties into that, where he's like, what have some of the things that helped you overcome those roadblocks? That probably ties into a similar aspect, right? At least for the beginning roadblocks, for sure. It's like where you are at and where you're building that ecosystem, like you just mentioned.
Yep. So moving.
Yeah.
We moved. We got out of the place that didn't want us. And it was actually really tough. Some of the conversations, I mean, everybody wants to see other people succeed. Especially in the venture and in the gaming space, like they want your video game to succeed. They also know that, hey, I'm not the person to help you succeed, so you need to go. So I had to set aside my personal. I think one of the things, another little caveat or carrot that you can pull off is setting aside your own personal needs or wants and going with the flow a little bit. Like as an entrepreneur, we don't like going with the flow, but at some purpose, there's some streams that you just can't go down, and you need to find a different door and go try somewhere else.
It's tough to make a change like that because you sometimes got to, like, I don't know what the correct analogy is, but you kind of got to bite the bullet and go for it and accept the emotional attachment and such to specific places, and I guess it's like anything in startup culture or just like building a business is sometimes you got to say no or make those hard decisions of canning something that you really, really did hope and want to succeed. And it's very difficult to do that and accept that, maybe where you are and where you're building this ecosystem isn't the right way for the product that you're building.
Yep.
For sure. Okay, so moving on from Jeff, we got D-Max, who gave us a ton of questions. D-Max, as people who know the channel know D-Max well. He's constantly on our Discord interacting, and let's get into some of his questions. He says the first one. He says, it seems like watching streams live with others is a key problem the NetVR is trying to solve. Is there good data on that? Watching streams live together is that a strong draw for people? And I guess we kind of already alluded to that in a way, where like having that intimacy of like interactability is something that we just don't get with the 2D space, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so the data set that we found in 2019, we actually went to the Consumer Electronics Summit, and we went to all of the streaming related seminars at the Consumer Electronics Summit, which has nothing really to do with Twitch or is even connected. But we went to the content creator led startups, and one of the data guys that was there, I don't remember what company he was with, but it's one of the big aggregators of studies in this creator space. They said 33% of viewers wanted more engagement with their content creators. What that engagement style was not defined, but there was a need for more engagement. And now Twitch has done the engagement piece over and over and over again. They've tried to add in gambling. They've tried to add in emotes. They've tried to add in different types of things here and there to increase engagement. We said, okay, we're going to our application provides that engagement, and we found that it is actually there's a viable market there that, based off of how much people spend on video games that are free to play video games, that there is viability and traction here with our product.
Yeah, absolutely. When you just said that, sorry, it resonated with me. Is like, does gambling in Twitch is something that I've missed?
Well, no.
Is
So
that just a whole
it's
thing?
interesting. No, it's interesting to see. So Kick, a whole brand new platform that is heavily backed by gambling and focuses solely on gambling. They took about a 10% share of the engagement that was requested on Twitch, right? So
Wow.
I mean, that number's there. So there's still 23% more that are still looking for a different engagement style within Twitch, right? You're not going to be able to get all 33%, but there is still people that want more engagement there. And
For sure.
we've seen, I mean, we've had the conversation before, and we've talked with content creators and we've talked with viewers, and they've all said, yeah, that's so stupidly simple. Like, why wouldn't I sit in my bed and watch through your application and watch my favorite content creator and see the other viewers? And like, that just seems like a no-brainer.
So that's the thing. I think also to piggyback on that, I think it's 33% is like the data, right, that's suggesting. But I think because there hasn't really been a solution to that, that number could be higher, but people just wouldn't know. Like, they don't know it until you kind of invent it in a way. And then that's just me, because I've just read the Steve Jobs book, and that's pulling straight from that. I can't even say it with a straight face, but in a way it is, because like this hasn't really been done before, right? Like, we bridge that gap for interactability. So the people who didn't vote, or I guess the percentage that didn't vote for that, maybe some of those is just because they don't know anything better, right? And until you bring something like potentially better, or just a new way which could be immersive, that number of 33% could be much higher, to be honest.
Correct. We just know that we have put the numbers out, and there is viability to the application based on the data that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. DMAX has a couple other questions which are very similar. He says, how does this compare with the data on people wanting to watch streams by themselves? Like, do you have any numbers of that? People like liking to watch the streams, maybe without needing a chat box, they just like to watch streams, or is that just a different demographic?
I mean, there's 11 million viewers that are watching Twitch right now. Do they interact with chat? I don't know the number off the top of my head. I want to say it's pretty high. A lot of people will just most people watch streams and do something else. So the stream is over on the side, and it's just content that's going that they want to be a part of, but they don't necessarily want to actively engage.
Yeah.
Our application doesn't necessarily, you can open up, instead of opening up a web browser, you can open up a theater and sit there and not do anything. Right.
Of course, yeah.
And somebody can still come and connect with you, or tap you on the shoulder, or say hi to you inside that theater while you're sitting there. But now, because you're sitting there, you get more visibility to being in the community, right? So like in ours, I'm not sure that isn't necessarily like relevant data. It's not irrelevant, but it's not like the key thing, because we kind of do the same thing that the people would already do inside of Twitch. Like, if you want to just watch Twitch all by yourself, you could do that in our theaters. You just turn off the overlay, you turn off all the other characters in the community, and watch it in a theater.
And that's probably not the people that you're kind of going for, who's going to even be interested. There's people who are kind of interacting and going into chat of wanting more, and that's kind of what you're bridging that gap for, those type of people. Right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And it's the same with DMAX is another question in terms of like, is it more that people want to schedule time with their friends to watch together, or is it more they want to watch with random viewers? And I guess your answer then you can obviously speak to it, but like what I'm gathering is more like it's not particular in terms of friends, it's not particular into randoms, it's particular in terms of the community behind that content creator is what the answer is, kind of thing.
100%. Like, you're already you already got it. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple, but it's really overlooked. It's just really overlooked. Hey, like, remember, I'm not sure necessarily how old you were, but we used to schedule 5 p.m. was dinner, and then 6 p.m. was some show that the family used to watch,
Yeah.
That was a really good time where you're able to sit down and, okay, I'm going to compromise and I'm going to watch this with everybody else. Game of Thrones was on. It's Sunday at 8. It started these parties, right? It's these community parties. And that's more kind of where we're trying to aim at of,
Back
hey,
in the
when's the
day
movie?
when we only had a few channels, right? Where it was a bit, where we didn't have all these, like, I guess you still have the same with like Netflix, but in terms of that, it's not a time base of where we're all watching it together. It's just, oh, have you seen this before? Or like, someone's been
Yeah,
watched it.
yeah.
We've lost that a little bit when it comes to just TV content, which is
We have,
kind
but
of
if you look at like the cult classics that come out, it's those episodes that have, okay, we're gonna delay. Yeah, we've already have all the recording, but we're gonna delay it until a week. You have to wait that week, but then
Yeah.
everybody talks about it, and you allow the community to talk about it longer, and it sticks in your memory longer because, okay, hey, someone said something about this. You get to then share your personal experience with somebody else of like, oh, this is what's going to happen next week. And you're like, no, this is what's going to happen next week. No, this is what's going to, like, you get to have that experience again where, I mean, some of that content is very important, and it's awesome because you get to share with the community. So having timed content come out it's a whole other piece that we haven't focused on right now, but that, we talked about it with the podcast of, hey, here's this podcast this week and what's the podcast next week. You kind of lose that where TV has, episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and the episodes kind of string together, or podcasts might not quite stream together. So, I mean, there's things in there where, hey, okay, we're just we're a website. Here's Game of Thrones on whatever, whatever the new next episode is. We can open up that theater and you might meet somebody that you haven't met, or you just open up the theater to your community that you want. And Discord does that right now.
Yeah. Discord is kind of it kind of is what you're trying to do in per se, but it's just having a bit more immersion of having that 3D space and such, in a way, because we obviously, everyone knows we have the LTO, Let's Talk Oculus, a Discord community where a lot of people interact and such, but then having that platform from when the show goes live and you can go watch it together with a bunch of people and talk about it and have that interactability is what really brings that community together. And it's great because I say this as just what happened in the Discord. Like when we first started the Discord, obviously me and Samson would have to be in there and we'd have to organize these events and organize things and such. And we still do, especially Samson. He still does now and again. But I'm now starting to see, and we've had this for like the past year, of people just meeting up together without any of our interactability. And that's great to see as a content creator, is when your community is actually properly interacting. And this is just this app that you're building and bringing to life is just something that's just going to add to that and make that happen faster, for sure.
We've basically said that we're Discord meets VR chat meets Twitch. We're those three things together, and that's kind of where our application's at.
Absolutely. In terms of the other DMAX questions, we kind of answered most of them, but his last question was like, are there any specific things that non-headset experience will offer that will make it more enjoyable for viewers in the non-headset? And I kind of want to flip that question a little bit and just say, is there like, are you going to try and make a more unified experience for all? Like if you're on the PC, you're getting pretty much the same experience with VR, obviously minus the immersion that VR brings, or are there going to be specific features that you can only use in VR? Like how are you planning to kind of do it that way?
Well, so the input devices, right, are very key. So like, right, a VR headset has, the controllers, the hand tracking capability, where a PC doesn't necessarily have hand tracking capability. It's gonna that's a whole immersion level. We're focused on the matter. We're focused on the bits, and we're trying to maintain and make sure that those are the same. So yes, the experience will be different for each individual person, but you'll be looking at, if I'm looking at two people, I'll be able to see that, hey, this person's wearing, an Optic Gaming shirt, or this person's wearing a FaZe Clan shirt, or something like that. You'll be able to see, and you'll still be able to get that perspective of what they're trying to share. And hearing and sound in the virtual space is very easy.
Yeah.
I don't know if easy is it's very important to be consciously connected to somebody. And so making sure that those concepts are nice, efficient across all of the devices will be things that we'll key in on, not necessarily the visuals, but definitely sound we can't touch sense or taste. They're not really.
No, of course. One day VR headsets will have smell and all that stuff, but you don't need that for streamers. I don't need to know what they smell like.
Right, but at the same time, I mean, you're in a community and someone rips one, over there. That's a shared experience. It's one of those things.
That is a bonding experience between, especially two males. I would probably say that's back in the day,
or unbonding experience.
It's or unbonding, yeah, exactly. One thing, just to kind of round off here, is that when DMAX kind of answered that question, is that in big screen it is kind of fun to have like tomatoes that you can throw at people at times and such. So I can see one day, I mean, this is not the minimum viable product at all, but I can see one day, once you have this product up and running and it's matured a little bit, you can go, okay, what are some of the interactability things that we can do in specific platforms to make it a little bit more fun in the audience with people? I can see you going through that, but let's kind of get the minimum viable product sorted first before we talk about and get into it.
No, and yeah, I love talking to them. I'm like, yes, I love that idea. It takes development. It takes development. It takes a developer either passionate about it or a developer that you pay to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. We went on much longer than anticipated, but it always does when the conversation just flows nicely, and I really appreciate it. And I love the work that you're doing. It's something that I personally wasn't aware of before, obviously being in contact with you, and I really like what you're doing in this space. Obviously, maybe me as not someone who would be this demographic of being the streamer, because I would not think of like, oh, is there something missing with streaming? There's a gap. But seeing this, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And it is weird that no one's doing things like this. And I'm glad you're pushing into it. And I really hope that you do get to 100% development and get this to market. And I'm sure, as you got like 20 developers, like this is not no one developer on the side doing these things. Like, you guys are serious in the background putting this stuff out. So I'm excited to see what happens, and obviously hopefully one day have it more with our podcast, and personally having it more of like a Let's Talk Oculus community where we could have our own personalized theater. But we'll get to that. Let's see. Let's wait until you at least develop this thing for streamers, and then we'll get to stuff later on. But it's been great to have you.
Awesome. It's going to be awesome. And thanks for having me. And yeah, hopefully you guys will be our first test subjects.
Oh, would love to. And is there anything you want to plug? Any links that you want to plug, or anything what people should check out?
The best way to get a hold of me, I mean, we do have our own Discord, the NetVR's public Discord. So we have one in there. LinkedIn is the best way to kind of get out if you want to get at me professionally, or if you want to get involved. The Discord's kind of the community space, which we've kind of done. So yeah, being a part of the community space, that it is part of my Twitch streaming space, I guess that's where that community is kind of anchored at right now, because the application it's very slow at development. But that's LinkedIn's
that's just the real world, isn't it? What can you do?
Yeah.
But fantastic. No, I appreciate it, Kyle, and links for people who are interested will be in the show notes below. And like I said, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us, and thanks for everyone else watching and listening, of course. We'll probably see you we always see you next Thursday for more of a regular episode with no guests, unfortunately. But let us know in the comments about what you think about NetVR, and if there's any other questions that you wanted to, I could always obviously send it to Kyle. If there's anything else that we did miss and you're really interested to hear about, let us know in the comments on YouTube, or just join our Discord. That's always going to be the best place to contact us. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kyle, for joining us once again, and we'll catch you later.